I've got a lot of firefighting aircraft flying over my house right now, so
Need
we're in
some
the
of my
middle
rain.
of that.
Yeah, and
Mm.
hey, just real quick, making sure everybody can hear me now. Sorry, the whole spiel that you guys missed was just apologies for not being on social media this week. Not only did I have a project due for my software development stuff that I'm trying to get certified in, that took up all my time, but I had a seahorse with pouch emphysema, which we will talk about shortly. And also, my computer completely crashed, and I had to get a new one. So sorry about the technical stuff. Hopefully, we're all back now. And I think they heard Holly, but she's in California, and she's literally having to evacuate because there's a fire near her. And I'm hoping they're not frozen yet again. I'm about done with Zoom, y'all. Holly, are you still with me?
Sounds familiar. Looks like we. There we go. I hear you now.
I don't
Okay.
know why it keeps coming in and out, but Holly, so what are you having to do to get prepared to evacuate with seahorses?
So I basically get everything ready for them to live temporarily somewhere else, like in buckets and things. So I have salt testing kits, um, air pumps, filters. I have sponge filters that I keep in the sumps that I can throw in their buckets when I evacuate them. And basically, what happens is they get taken to a friend's house. So I plan ahead. I have an emergency destination for them. So when I leave, I pack them in buckets with their battery powered aerators and go to my friend's house and set up housekeeping there for them because sometimes in these fires, 3 years ago, when we had the campfire here that burned down my town, we were evacuated for 3 weeks.
Right.
So basically, I put together everything that I need, food for them in an ice chest, everything, so that I'm prepared to live with them somewhere else, for
Hmm.
a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can buy supplies for them later once I'm in town, at my friend's place, but I pack just enough stuff to keep us going, and them going. I use the ink birds,
Oh yeah.
with little heaters. One thing that happens during a fire, this is actually pretty surprising to me, but when we had the big fire here last time, it was 100 degrees the day that we evacuated. The next day, the sun was so blocked out by smoke and fog that we couldn't see the fire.
Mm-mm. I think they're frozen again. Holly, can you hear me? Okay. All right. Okay, let me see if I can get them back. While I'm getting them back, I'm going to repeat my my beginning, um, in case I didn't clarify very quick. Well, gosh, I'm tongue tied now. Okay, so this week I haven't been on social. Actually, for almost 2 weeks, I haven't been on social media at all, and I'm getting them back as I'm talking, guys. Sorry. Um, but anyways, so first of all, as you saw in the description, I had a seahorse get pouch emphysema, which we will talk about. And I had a computer crash, and I've been working on a project. But one thing that I didn't get to repeat when I was repeating my intro is that I wanted to personally apologize to Leah, because her women in reefing video has been done for a week, but then with everything going on, it didn't get it posted. So please look out for that because it will be up either tonight or tomorrow, depending on how long we go tonight. But it's really great. She's really great. She's Callie Coral Collector on Instagram. And so look for that video on Women in Reefing. Also, don't forget the Women in Reefing Pico tank giveaway is going on right now. So make sure you get over to Women in Reefing channel to get on that. And hi, Amy. Hi, Dylan. And Amy, I got to talk to you about some women in reefing stuff too. But let me see if I can't just get these guys back here with me.
This meeting
Kelly,
is being recorded.
there we go.
I'm sorry, guys. You booted me out. Zoom doesn't
That's
like
okay.
me.
We're still here.
Okay, so Holly, I'm sorry. I know you guys were probably chatting while I was gone, but just you
That's
were saying
okay.
something important. You were saying, do you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, I don't know where you lost me quite. I was basically saying that what I do is I put together a kit at the beginning of fire season normally that has water test kits, um, turkey baster for feeding them, salt, all the things that I need to take care of them somewhere else, and set
Right.
them up in tubs or buckets, but I have a designated temporary home to take them to, a friend's house, you know,
Yes.
and I would just show up with the seahorses in buckets and their aerators and set up housekeeping for them temporarily.
You also said that you have cycled filter media that you keep
Yes,
in for this, specifically in case this happens, which is very
for
important.
all kinds of stuff. Yeah, for if I have fry born, for if I need for any reason, I keep a supply of sponge filters in the sumps of my tanks,
Mm-hmm.
and I have an evacuation list that I actually keep year round, and then that way when fire's starting and I'm panicking, I have a list of what I need to pack so to keep me on track.
That is
And
so
so,
smart. I mean, we talked last week about, people in Florida having to prepare for hurricanes and,
mhm,
but these fires are just the same. I mean, like you were saying, you were
yeah,
evacuated for 3 weeks last year. And my
I
question,
think
go ahead.
I think the key is you need to know what is likely to happen in your area
Yep.
and be prepared for it, and mentally as well, as because I'm so used to in my head, I know what's valuable to me. I know what I need to do to get ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my best advice for anyone that wants to be prepared for situations like that is to think about if I had to leave and I was able to rescue my seahorses, other fish, whatever you have, what would I need?
Mm-hmm.
And put together a kit and keep it where you can just grab it. I have a huge tote. That's I pack everything in. Air pumps, airline, all heaters. I know what I was saying when we cut off. One thing that's interesting that happens in a fire situation, which I never knew until I was in it, the day that our town burned down 3 years ago, it was in November.
Wow.
It was 100 degrees that day. We evacuated to a town that's roughly 30 miles away, and the next day the smoke was so bad it was covering the sun. It was 32 degrees.
Mm.
So even though it's summer, and it's hot now, we've had a heat wave. I also pack for in case it's cold. I pack the heaters for the tanks as well as little fans and things because you don't know what the weather's going to do in that situation. And
That
I
is
use
so
an
smart.
inkbird so that the heaters don't fry them because it's the little heaters that go at 78 degrees, right? So I can put them on an inkbird and program them to turn off at 70 or what.
Yep.
So
So wait, is your friend like how far away is your friend? Like your
about,
emergency friend? Because
about 30 miles. He's in a
okay,
city. So we have family and friends that are in a city. I'm kind of in the mountains above that.
gotcha.
So they can go under evacuation, but it's very rare.
Okay.
Then we'd be really worried. I mean, it almost happened during that fire 3 years ago, during the campfire. There were parts of that town that the fire nearly reached that were being evacuated, but it's a fairly big city, so
Yeah. Well, no, I
lots
just
of people there. And
I
not far away. It's like a normally a half hour drive,
Mhm.
But when you're evacuating, the roads get clogged. And during the last fire, it
Oh,
took
I
us
bet.
4 hours to make a half-hour drive.
I absolutely love the battery charged air pumps. Those things are
Oh yeah,
genius. I mean, I have them here
yeah.
too, just for, when we have tornadoes or power outages,
You never
period,
know.
because
Power could go out, all kinds
yes.
of stuff, which we have a generator ready because the Cal Fire was letting the power company know they need to shut down power lines in the area of the fire now.
Yep.
And so we might lose power because of that. So we have the generator ready to go, and it's enough to run our refrigerator, and all my tanks go on it. And that's
One thing
basically
I
it.
do also is I have a regular generator that can run refrigerator
Right.
and stuff, but I also have a portable camping generator that is battery powered, and that has it's something I can walk into the other room and takes me about 3 minutes to hook up to all my tanks.
That's nice.
And I wanted to mention that because that has helped me out more than once. It's something you
Yeah, and
could put
that's
in a
quick
car.
and easy.
Yeah, it's something you could put in a car when you're
Yeah,
transporting.
that's a
And
great idea.
it cost me, I think I paid like $80 for it. I've had it for
uh
years. It also jumps cars and blows up tires and all kinds of other stuff.
I think we
Right.
have, well, I don't think ours is a generator. I think it's just for blowing up tires and stuff.
Yeah,
Oh.
this this will do all of it, and it
Ever thought
just really.
about using an inverter?
I'm sorry.
No, for Holly there. When you evacuate, if you have an inverter, you just hook it up to the battery, and while
Battery.
you're driving along,
Yeah.
you've got an outlet to plug your standard pumps into, and you don't have to worry about the little batteries running out of power.
Oh yeah.
All right, now go watch Kelly Google inverter. What the hell's an inverter?
Nice.
Sorry.
Well, it's
It
kind of
converts the power.
part of a generator.
Yeah.
Um, it's how do I say it? Well, put it this way: I took um, an old cultivator that was no good anymore. Now I used the engine for that to power a General Motors alternator, and that powered the inverter, so that I have a backup or an extra generator now to use along with my store-bought generator.
Well, I need you to make me one of each of those.
But
And
I can take the inverter off of this unit, and I can hook it up in the van, and I can travel and hook
Yeah.
up pumps or anything else that I need in the
it's
van.
it's
So would you
genius. I just can't
you like plug
imagine.
it into like the cigarette lighter? Is that how it works? Would you plug it into like a lighter outlet or something?
Well, usually you would just um, you had like jumper cable ends
Yeah. Off the
on the
Yeah.
battery.
convert or on the inverter, and then you would hook it up to the battery and run the wires to inside your vehicle, and then like the inverter has plugs or sockets on it just to plug regular electrical appliances into that are 120 or 110, whatever you want to call it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. That's a really good idea. I don't know that I could pull it off, but I mean anybody who could. That's great. Great idea. That's great
Well,
advice.
I used to use it to power up when I was delivering seahorses to down in Toronto. I would meet the people from Montreal. They would come down to Toronto, and I would drive to Toronto, and I would have these 5 gallon instant ocean pails
Hmm.
in the back of the van, and I'd have the seahorses in there, and I had the air pumps plugged into this inverter and powering the air pumps to keep the water circulating and aerated in these 5 gallon pails.
Nice. And Dylan said he was thinking the same thing. So I guess it's just Kelly that needs to go Google. But I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it because most people out there will know what you're talking about, and that's awesome. Um, oh, hey, real quick before we continue, I wanted to mention too that Heather is coming next week. So I know that's kind of random, and yeah, but I was thinking about it, and she was supposed to come this week, but she had a bad week too. So Heather is going to show off her sea shed next week, guys. So I will do a post to remind everyone, but I just wanted to mention it.
Did you see her Facebook post where she's selling her broom and her mop and all her house?
That's great.
I didn't. I wasn't on social media. Why is she selling everything?
That was great.
That was funny.
Oh, it's funny. Okay, okay. I'll
Yeah,
have to go
well,
look.
she posted that she just couldn't keep up anymore, and she made a long list of what she was selling. It was her mop, her broom, her dustpan, and all
She's great.
basically the house. Her vacuum cleaner, etc. And it's one of those things where you just read it and you laugh because you can
Yeah,
relate
She made it sound like she was giving up her
her
seahorse
seahorse.
hobby because she couldn't keep up. And then
gotcha.
you read it a little farther, and she's giving up her house cleaning supplies.
I like it. Great idea. I'm with her. She's awesome. So yeah, I'll definitely check out that post. But yeah, she'll be here next week. Just letting you guys know. Tell your friends, and I'll post about it. But anyway, sorry, didn't mean to get off track. But I think it's really. I know we kind of hit on this almost every week about preparedness. But I think it's really important. And I mean, people set up for seahorses and they don't even consider what would happen. So I think it's a good thing that you guys share
Yeah.
constantly about this.
So like the big freeze we had back in February,
Yeah.
I know a number of people that had, I mean, they had thousands of dollars worth of coral and fish that they'd had for many years in some very large tanks. And when they lost power for 5 days, they lost everything,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, that happened during our fire here years ago. I didn't have the seahorses yet, thank God, but I had just started my reef tank for the seahorses, and I had a couple fish in there. I had live rock, but mostly we had several big freshwater aquariums. We had big placosomus.
Hmm.
We had all kinds of freshwater fish. And the thing was, when we evacuated, we didn't we didn't realize we'd be gone so long.
Right.
And what ended up happening was power was only shut off here for, like you said, 5 days. But that's all it took
Yeah.
to kill everything, basically. But my live rock survived and actually recycled, that tank recycled itself while we were
Wow.
gone
Well,
over
what
the
happened
three
with
weeks.
this one, we were actually below freezing for over 5 days. And people in San Antonio had no power at all.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
there were lives lost with this one. And there was no way, if you didn't already have generators and a whole backup system set up, there's no way you could maintain it. One friend of mine, they bought a new house and they were fortunate because they had gas powered fireplaces and they
Oh,
didn't lose their tanks, but it was only because they were using gasoline to fire up the fireplaces to keep the house warm.
Mhm.
gotcha. Still, that's so scary. I mean, that's why I think it's important to share all of this, and the battery powered backups, the converter thingy, inverter thingy,
Inverter.
Yeah.
inverter thingy. I mean, so my question to you in the audience, anyone's watching now or watching later, do you have a backup plan for if a natural disaster happens in your area? Took me a lot of years to get a plan in place because I don't have all the generators and all that stuff. But you kind of, if you once you've put all this money into an aquarium and fish and coral and seahorses, it's kind of silly not to be ready for an emergency. So definitely. That we've
Yeah.
talked before too about like making sure your electrical wires are correct and that you're not sending voltage into the tank. I mean, these things are important. So I'm glad we keep talking about them. And Amy said you're like Inspector Gadget, Ray. You're Inspector Gadget. But
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's like with me, I'm on the same power grid as two military bases. So
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the lucky ones. I didn't lose power because they're going to maintain power to those bases. But so many other people, I mean, And those of us that had power were volunteering to take in other people's fish and corals during this time frame where we had tanks. But the problem was it had already frozen and nobody expected it. So nobody could get out to get anywhere.
Mm, so scary. Just terrible. Well, I'm glad you're prepared, Holly. When will you know? Like, my final question about this, because I do want to talk about Dylan's tank, pouch emphysema, and some other things, but my final question is, like, and this might be stupid, but I'm really trying to comprehend this. So, a fire starts, and do they just not see it until it gets too big, or is it because the
No, it
trees are
gets
just catching
it
fire
gets
so
out
quick?
of control. Like, and Cheryl knows this because we were communicating about it last night, and she's told me, she has some firefighting experience. I think, right, Cheryl?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So basically, this fire, it started in a fairly remote area underneath power lines.
Oof.
It was 1 acre when they discovered it. It was discovered
It was
by a
tiny.
fire crew
Yeah.
on the way to another fire.
Mm.
And so they got on it really quickly, but it was later in the day. It was maybe 3 in the afternoon or so. So they started hitting it hard with aircraft, and they sent in crews, and they put a line around it of fire retardant. But when they got the equipment in, the fire trucks and dozers and stuff, they could not make the roads too narrow. They can't get there. So the
Oh,
hand crews had to hike in 2 miles.
Yeah.
jeez.
And this is now like once it gets like 8 o'clock when the sun goes down, it's not safe to fly.
Right.
Yeah.
So the
So
aircraft shuts down for the night, and then winds can pick up in the canyon, and that's when stuff really explodes.
yeah.
So it went from about 2 acres last I checked last night to this morning when I checked on it, it was 900 acres.
That is
Exactly.
so
Now it's
scary.
now it's 1,500 acres.
See,
Well,
and
and
and I mean, that was my main question because I mean, I get what you're saying. It makes sense. And I'm not, I'm not in California and I can't imagine how scary it is. And I'm definitely not a firefighter or, science or anybody. But it seems like, yeah, I feel like we should be to the point where we have technology where a helicopter can just dump a bunch of water and it be over,
Well,
the
they
thing is,
do. They have military planes now that they've specially outfitted for fighting these huge fires, and they're dumping
they can carry
insane amounts of
12,000
retardant.
gallons
12,000 gallons of retardant.
fire retardant. The
But you
problem
got to
was,
remember when my town burned down in 2018, started in the same area as this one did, and took 3 hours to reach our town and burn it to the ground because the
depends on the
winds were
winds.
70 miles per hour. It was so dry that there were spot fires. What happens is burning stuff rises up into the air and gets carried by wind currents and lands 20 miles away and starts a
Mm,
new fire. So
Yeah.
that's what happened when our town burned down. There was so much spotting. They've got not just one big fire, they've got 200 small ones. And there's not enough
jeez.
personnel to keep up with that.
Well,
It
So
makes
that's
sense.
why
It
when
makes
these fires start, even though they're small, they put on full air attack and really get in there and try to get them out early because if they start spotting,
yeah.
there's not enough resources to be everywhere at once.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking is why aren't we doing more to provide more resources? Hey
well,
Chimp, um,
these areas are inaccessible, which means the hot shots who are going to be on the ground to do the fire lines that are needed, that may take them several hours just to
To get
hike into
there.
an area before
Yeah.
they start doing the wire lines. And then they're working in the dark. In this
mhm,
instance, the hot shots didn't get in there until almost dark. And they
right.
were called out early, but they had to hike in because there's no
Mhm.
roads.
No,
Mhm.
I'm not at all saying those people aren't doing the personnel
Oh,
aren't doing a good enough job. I'm sure they're like, oh my gosh, we can't get in, so now we're gonna go in by foot. That's
But
insane
when
to
you're
me.
talking about resources with these huge fires, I believe they have them in Australia also.
yes.
We bring in resources from all over the world to fight these fires. It's an international network that comes in during fire seasons in these places.
Yeah. U.S.
We
Mother
Fire
have them
Mother
in
Department
Canada
uses
Nature
them
too.
don't
in
play.
Australia.
What
Yeah.
Ray?
We have them here in Canada too.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the thing
I'm
is,
with Amy. I'm feeling quite good about sitting here in Indiana now. That's not on a normal day, but today, as we talk about this, man. Um,
Well,
Go ahead.
well, the thing is with the California fires too, so much of it, they're in a major drought. They have been
mhm.
for a long
Yep,
time.
for many
There's a lot
years.
of dead brush, dead trees because of
Hmm.
the drought. So, and you have scorching temperatures, temperatures that are setting records right now in the
Mhm.
United States for the first time. So you've got extreme heat, you've got extreme drought, and you've got an extreme degree of basically combustible material.
Mhm.
And it's not a, it's dangerous for anybody that's fighting that fire because you never know where the
Right.
next one's going to start.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Like we
much
were just
much.
talking last night, I was letting Cheryl know, I was going to bed, and she says, if I were you, I wouldn't be able to sleep. And I said, well, if if I wasn't able to sleep, I couldn't sleep at all during fire season because we have so
Right.
many fires going. As soon as you turn around, there's another one, and I just have to be vigilant and keep an eye, pay attention, and know how it
Hmm.
works, like how they travel and all that. And I just have to
See,
be on top of it and make the decision of when it's safe to sleep and when it's not.
Know
Holly,
when to walk away and know when to run.
right, but Holly,
Yeah.
I think you've done a good job of covering at the beginning of this the kit that you put together for making sure the seahorses are safe and can be, can live through these terrible fires. But I'm sitting here thinking maybe we should do a full show on it at some point because Dan talks about, learning how to figure out um, the charts
The
and the graphs
hurricane
and all that
stuff, yeah.
stuff, and you could show how to know when the fire's actually coming your way
Yeah,
and
I,
what to
I
read.
did take a lot of pictures while I was packing, so I'll shoot you the pictures, and yeah, I can explain, what my process is, what's in there, what for, and
Or maybe even better, instead of doing it like on a live line Wednesday where we have technical stuff, maybe we could do a video. I've said that before,
yeah,
but
make a
if
video
we could
of it.
actually do it
Yeah,
this time, we could
It's
actually do
a
it.
lot easier. What she's doing is she's planning ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, be safe, hon. She's planning ahead for a horrific emergency
Yes.
and already knows exactly what she needs to do, what she needs to have with her, what she needs to pack. And I'm sure you know more than one route out of your area if you had to
mhm,
turn around. So you've got
mhm,
multiple avenues to get yourself out of there in one piece. That's one thing a lot of people forget about. And you've got to give yourself enough time to make sure that you actually can get out.
Hmm.
mhm.
And it takes a lot of planning and a lot of thought.
Well, Holly, get with me on the side because I'm thinking that's a great video. And Amy, yeah, me and you should do one on the electric companies for sure. Hey, not to abruptly change subject, but I'm so glad that Holly, you are prepared. I hope that anyone near you has gotten this message. I hope anyone with seahorses, that deals with this has a plan, and we'll try to do a video on it. But I do want to ask guys before this gets too late, because we've talked about pouch emphysema before. Dan did a
Mhm.
presentation. We've got articles. Nobody really completely understands, um, you know, GBD and pouch emphysema and all that. But it's typically equated to organics, right? I mean,
Mhm.
like that's been the theory, the running theory. They used to think it was bubbles, then they figured out it wasn't. Dan proved it wasn't, like from skimmer bubbles and even nano bubbles. And then, we we've gotten into this place where actually, I'm just going to ask the question as if I don't know. Because the bottom line is, you guys know I've had so much trouble with this all-in-one tank. Between getting flow right, between getting whatever right. But I am on top of it, right? I've done this before, and I'm doing more than weekly water changes. The only thing I can possibly think of is there was a time when my strainer, I don't want to say strainer, I can't think of the name. I've got one of Dan's that I use to strain the food. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Or a
Yeah.
brine shrimp net or whatever. Anyways, it broke and I didn't have one for like a couple of days, so I wasn't rinsing my food. And so I'm just trying to give you guys all the information. But bottom line is, this one of the males started flirting with the girl who was hiding from him. Let's get that straight.
Smart
And
girl.
yep. And all of a sudden, I see him doing having trouble. He wasn't fully like at the top, floating. He was smart enough to know to hitch, and but when he would go after food or go after her or go after whatever, I would notice he was having a lot of trouble swimming down.
He was
And
positively buoyant. Yeah.
right. And so, and actually, I knew what to do. I actually made a video of it, which I will post soon, to show you what I did. And so far, it's worked. I haven't had to do any other treatments. I just did the bobby pin, let out the gas. But I'm trying to figure out what the heck happened.
It sounds like, what kind of, well, you're not running a huge skimmer on that.
That's true. That I don't like the skimmer on it. That's true. Could that be the problem?
Yeah.
So if
Like,
someone, So if someone with an all-in-one can't run a huge skimmer, I mean, this skimmer is supposedly rated 1.5 times the tank volume, but still, I know we usually recommend 2 times. So if the skimmer is
Or
just
more.
not, or more, right? If the skimmer's
Yeah.
not cutting it, would you guys suggest like an all-in-one? The whole point to doing this all-in-one was to show that you can keep seahorses in a smaller tank and be successful. So I want to do that. I don't want to I don't want to end up failing or telling people, yeah, you just can't do it. Dylan's doing it and doing it well. So my question is, would you just say more water changes? Should I throw a side huge skimmer on it? What do you think?
I would see if I could get just because the skimmer, let me back up for a minute. Just because
Yes,
the
please.
skimmer is rated for a particular number of gallons does not mean it's going to be able to keep up with the amount of dissolved organic seahorses placed on a tank.
Right.
And that is the most common cause of pouch emphysema, is excessive dissolved organics. If you can correct the dissolved organics, evacuate the pouch, you shouldn't even have to use antibiotics or anything else because it will
Right.
use itself right up. But it's one of those things where it also causes stress to the seahorse when they're in that condition. And I'll put it to you this way. Some of my old skimmers are now K1 media reactors.
Right.
The rest of them have gone into garbage.
Right. Well, and I wanted to bring Dylan into the conversation because he has said, get a hob skimmer. What skimmer do you have, Dylan, is my question, that's working for you? Because what I bought was the best I could find. There was one I wanted more. I can't remember now, but Harkins Aquatics came on and he helped me on the side. And there was a DOC, I think, I can't remember the name. Go back and watch that episode. But he suggested a skimmer for the all-in-one, and they were out of stock. I mean, I think they're still out of stock. But so I ended up getting Innovative Marine, the mid-size, not the nano. And I'm not at all putting down the product or the company. I'm just, trying to figure out if it can work for seahorses, right? Because for a normal reef tank, I think it'd be fine, but seahorses need that extra oomph, right?
Right.
So
You
anyways,
get the extra oomph by using carbon in a reactor.
That'll work.
Carbon takes out dissolved organics.
well, I'm using Aquachar though. That's the other thing. I'm using Aquachar, which is they say they're not carbon. They're technically not activated carbon, but they are. I mean, they're not. They're more
You've
than
got
that.
more faith than I have.
What?
I'm still a believer in the surface, the amount of surface area being effective, and with the size of that aquachar, I just can't see that it's got enough surface area to do what's needed in a seahorse tank.
Well, and maybe that's it, because one of the things he said, and you can see we've done videos with Aquachar and Wine Wednesday. One of the things he said is Aquachar's main goal is to be a biological media. So not main, its side goal is to be, not only the chemical but also the biological. So maybe in a seahorse tank, we need more of the chemical also. I mean, I'm looking to you guys for ideas, because as I go along and I'm making videos, guys, they're just not posted yet. Like with the seahorse that I did have to do a evacuation, or however you want to call it, pouch. What do you guys call it?
Pouch evac.
Evac. Okay. Um, when I did have to do it, Cheryl made the point that they're stressed out, but this is an older seahorse that, I'm not, he was very calm. He let me handle him. He literally lays back like this and he's like, "Get it out, Mom." I mean, you'll see in the
He's been
video,
through
but
it before.
well, no,
On a
I don't
side
think
note,
I
on
don't
a
think
side
he's
note,
been through it before. Maybe he's had troubles before and been able to expel the stuff himself. And
finish.
this time, then that was my other question. I know you're trying to say something, Cheryl. That was my other question. Is the other thought is we've really backtracked from saying a high tank is necessary. It used to be said you need a higher tank for seahorses. We've backtracked. I think Harkins or Salty or someone had kept the seahorses in a very shallow tank and it was fine. They even bred. But this guy with big, huge seahorses, I just have constantly been wondering, because this is a shallow tank. So I'm just throwing everything out there so we can
Well,
have the discussion.
I'm not bothered by a shallow tank.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I've had, it was a lot of years ago now, but reed eye that I put in the breeder, that's a fairly shallow tank, and they still found a way to get the job done, and I ended up with fry.
Well, at one point, I have my nursery tubs are about 20 gallons. And at one point, when I was, last time I adopted Erectus fry, I had probably at least 30 3-inch Erectus in just one tub alone. But again, the filtration was there with the sump, and also I actually had 2 tanks plumbed into the same sump.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of problems, I think, with a lot of these skimmers that we see really don't do what they're cracked up to do.
Gotcha.
And I think that's part of the problem. I run activated carbon in my systems. I run Purigen in my systems. But I bought the same. I've got 7 of the big ones and 3 of the slightly smaller ones years ago. And those skimmers really do a job. Of course, you continue cleaning the cups, the collection cups, but you'd be amazed at how much debris a really top of the line skimmer can pull out.
No, I wouldn't be surprised, because I have a top of the line in my other tank and it's amazing. Yeah. I get it.
Right.
But I wanted to ask Dylan's, because you said skimmer's good. It's a Hob skimmer. It's the Fluval Flex 3. No, you have the Fluval Flex 32.5 tank, and you bought the skimmer for that. The skimmer's rated for 45 gallons, and you have to clean it out every 2 days. Very, very wet, dirty skim. Okay, so let me ask a question on that, because maybe it's me, guys. I mean, I'm not used to smaller tanks and smaller equipment. So that's why I said I'm not putting down the equipment yet. I want to make sure I'm using it right, because this skimmer, I think I showed you guys on the week where I was actually showing the tank. This skimmer, literally the only thing that you can adjust on it is this little like O-ring or rubber band type thing, and then that handles where it sits into the skimmer, and I can post a picture later. And so when Dylan talked about, wait, when Dylan talked about it being a very, very wet skim, I think Dan even suggested to me adjusting it so that it was more wet. Maybe I'm doing that wrong, but I'm literally having to change or empty the skimmer cup daily.
I had to hang on back for a while. I had to empty it several times a day.
Oh shit. Oh,
on my 55-gallon before I got my big sump and the big skimmer. The skimmers I use now are designed for tanks 4 times their size,
Yeah.
and I'm
right,
still emptying the cup daily or every
My,
other day. It's this big a cup,
yeah.
you know.
My
right.
skimmers take up about a third of my sump.
Yeah, mine's
Right.
probably more than that.
I've
Yeah.
never had a store-bought one.
Yeah.
Oh, Ray, I
Ray's
know
the one
you
that does
make
the skimmers
everything.
and sealing.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
I look at the
good.
price to get a decent one that will do what I want, and there's no way I'm gonna spend $1,000 on each system, well, especially when I had so many systems.
Right.
I wasn't gonna spend that kind of money, so 4-inch ABS tubing and, and PVC tubing, and, I bought basswood at a wood shop, and, basswood's what to make air stones out of. And so the air stones are 2 inches by 2 inches by 7 inches,
Mhm.
and I bore a 7/8 diameter hole in them, and I thread the start so I can put standard nylon or polyethylene, I'm not sure what they are, fittings into them, and then 3/8 air lines hook up to it, and then I hook them up to my big air pumps, and the air pumps are cheap. Uh,
Didn't you send me a link to your post about that or your article about that, or am I thinking of something else?
well, it's on my web. Like there's a page
Article.
on how I made them on my website.
Okay, well, send it to me again afterwards because anytime we talk about it, I want to link it in the description. But
You
what?
just want to look at that square box that's overflowing on the ceiling.
What?
You had me send you the picture one time of that.
Oh yes, overflowing on a ceiling. I
Yeah.
remember,
The
but still,
ceiling on the ceiling.
yes, I remember now. But today, send me the link to that page if you could, if you have time, because not only do I want to post it in the description, but I'm interested. I really want to show that people can long term keep seahorses easily. And I mean, if it comes down to the point where the only way you can do it is if you have a huge sump and a huge skimmer, really good skimmer, blah blah blah. That's that. But I still want to keep trying. I've got this tank as backup if I keep having problems, but there's a good chance that I'm just doing things wrong. You know what I mean? I'm not used to small tanks. So,
Well,
Dylan, I appreciate all of your thoughts and
yeah.
your recommendations. But go ahead.
Yeah, my skimmers are no good for your situation though, Kelly. Like
No.
you're going to set up a tank in a living room or places like that. You don't want a 6 foot tall, 4-inch diameter skimmer sitting beside it.
Right.
But for me, I don't give a damn what things look like around it. All
Well,
I
see,
want, I want to see horses and I want them looked after. And
but
whatever I have to do, the rest doesn't matter.
but Ray, so it just sits. It doesn't need an actual sump, but it sits on the side of the tank, right?
Yeah, I
Okay, that
actually
is what
put
I'm
them in a
interested
bucket.
in.
I
That
sit them
is
in a
what I'm
bucket
interested.
just in case.
Well, I mean, but that is what I'm interested in because the thing is, even if I can't at the end of this little testing period, even if I can't say I would recommend an all-in-one for seahorses, if
Yeah.
it just doesn't work out, I'd love to be able to
So,
show. But if you throw on one of Ray's awesome homemade skimmers, then it works. You know?
I
Kelly,
bought one many years ago for a guy, and he had he set up the skimmer on the back wall of the of where he had the tank because it just happened to be like a laundry setup in there that had a washer and a dryer and stuff like that. And so he went through the wall and the water pumped out into this skimmer and then pumped back into the tank. So
yeah.
in that kind of situation, it was fine. And like it's a monstrosity to look at, but the thing is, you can get something that I don't think there's any commercial um for hobbyist tanks skimmer that will turn out and do the job that this 6 foot skimmer would do. This
Yeah.
six foot skimmer probably would handle some 4 or 5 thousand gallon reef tanks that some people install in commercial stores and that for their customers to see.
Well, see, that's why I'm thinking maybe I will just try it because
You know,
I'm
skimmers
still
originally were designed for fresh water,
right. I know.
work well in it, but it was for waste treatment plants.
Right.
in the cities. When they were treating the waste back in, I'm guessing it was even before my time, but I know they were doing it in the 40s when
Right.
I was a kid. So
Right. And
when you use it for salt water, then it foams much easier and does a much better job.
Kelly, also keep in mind your tank is still fairly new, and I'm not surprised that you're having some idiosyncratic problems with it
yeah.
because it is it's still a very young tank.
Right.
And you may find that that skimmer, once everything settles in and it's been aged for a while, you're going to have a lot less problems with it.
True, true. I was just very surprised when I saw him swing. And when I do post the video of doing the pouch evac, you wouldn't believe the bubbles that came out. It was insane. It just kept coming. And afterwards, he swam around and he's been fine since. So I'm
Did you
hoping I
flush
got it.
afterwards?
What was it?
Did you flush afterwards?
You mean well, you mean like with the catheter or the
Yeah, the catheter cannula. You should flush it with the new salt water, not tank water, new salt water. And in my experience, it doesn't always succeed the first time. It may come back again. But
uh-huh
if you don't flush, it's almost always going to come back at some point because there's some residual
stuff.
uh, bacteria or something that started in the first place that is still left in there. And all it takes is the right conditions for it to expand and go again. And
Right.
you're right back where you started. And I had
Well, go ahead.
trouble with that for a lot of times until I realized I got to flush it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and we're going to test that theory because I'll be honest, I didn't. Here's the things you guys got to remember when you watch this. Number one, I've been successful for so long with larger tanks that the smaller tanks and me not having done it for a while with new seahorses, this is all a new. I'm like a newbie, seriously. And then when these things happen, I can know the right response, but I can't even put the audio in the video where I'm doing the pouch evac because I'm you wouldn't want to hear it. I'm like, I'm so afraid I'm hurting him. Oh, la, la, la. I mean, I'm freaking out like an idiot when I know what to do. But at the point where so many bubbles had come out, and then he was starting to like twist a little bit, and I let him. I mean, it had stopped coming out. I did not do the pouch flush. I will if this happens again. But another question that I'm having, pretending to be the newbie here, is it just surprises me because if it's organics, um, why is it only one male? First of all, and second of all, I can say that this male was showing off for the girl. He was sucking it in, pulling it out. Is that why? Because he was doing more pouch inflates?
It technically, if the skimmer and everything is adjusted right, it should not be an issue that could inflate as a pouch, unless somebody's running like an air stone in there and the male's hitching to the air stone and inflating his pouch. That's the only time I've seen that happen.
Okay.
But the thing is with skimmers too, they're once you get to know a skimmer, you either have you either love it or you hate it.
Right.
And I hate a lot more than I love.
Right.
And it's one of those things where I've even found I've been using the same brand now for a number of years. And I know darn good and well if I don't soak the air intakes in vinegar on a regular basis,
Mm,
they aren't going to function right. So I
gotcha.
have a spare air intakes. I throw one in vinegar, let it sit for a couple of days, pop on a new one, and my skimmer's back working perfectly. But if that air intake gets messed up, I'm going to have a mess.
Well, I'm going to do that too. I'm going to go and clean the skimmer really well and make sure it's not that. And again, guys, I'm just sharing so that you can tell me what's worked for you or you guys in the audience if it's happened to you. And I just wanted to show you that even somebody who's been doing seahorses for a long time can have these problems when things are new or changed. So definitely I'll
I'm
keep you
thinking,
guys updated. But, and oh, and
I'm thinking your
go ahead.
air intake is messing up.
Okay. Well, what do you mean air intake? In the
Isn't
skimmer?
there an area or a valve where you can adjust the amount of air that's moving into the skimmer?
No.
So
In this tank, The only thing there's a hose that hangs off the back, and there's this little cylinder thing with two holes that brings the air in. That's it.
And if those plug up or start to plug up, it's going to totally mess up your skimmer.
Okay, I'll check that too, and I'll clean it. And the only other thing I wanted to ask you guys about it, because Dan has told me repeatedly that this should not matter, but it's still in my head. I can't help it. So you guys know I was having trouble with the flow, and I talked to Dylan a few weeks ago about, the requirement of an auto top off in an all-in-one tank because they get low so quickly, and then it's bubbles everywhere because you're letting air in through the literal pump, which is a no-no. And that's happened a couple of times, and I'm just wondering if you guys think that matters. I mean, and I know it doesn't matter technically. Like, I'm not trying to say to anybody with seahorses, oh man, if your water gets too low and your pump shoots in air and you got those fine bubbles everywhere, you should be worried. No, but what I'm saying is this guy was frisky, constantly pouch inflating, and I'm just like, if he never has a problem again, I'm gonna believe it was that. I'm just telling y'all.
So
I'll still
what you're
check the skimmer
saying
though.
is you're getting too much
Living in
of
fantasy land.
you're getting
I
too much
think it's
evaporation.
totally bacterial. Sandy had the same, I mean, he had the same thing happen to him, and I'm pretty sure it was because he took on more bacteria. All the other seahorses are fine, but
Right.
because he was having fry and actively mating, I think he took in bacteria that the other seahorses are probably okay with. But I think when they're actively mating and stuff, I think they're more prone to bacterial infections.
Well,
And
the thing
Right.
is
So Ray
they're
Ray has
training
said
into
that I'm living in fantasy land. I love you too, Ray. But maybe what Holly said is correct. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. I'm not a
well,
scientist. I never really will. But the bottom line is maybe it's not because there were a couple of times where air came in through the pump, but maybe Holly's right. Maybe all of you are right that because the skimmer's not efficient enough for the seahorses, the organics, when the male that's constantly trying to breed and inflating his pouch, he gets more of it in. That makes sense to me.
I haven't seen any pouch emphysema in very, very long time. But I'm also running massive skimmers, stumps, the whole 9 yards on them.
Right.
And the little, it's the little things. Right now, I've got three males that are decent size, inflating their pouches, and they're doing they're doing male wars.
Right.
And I wouldn't be, I have not had any problems with them, but I'm keeping a close eye on them. And but I'm also do small water changes a couple times a week on that tank and things like that, which I think helps out. Um, as I said, my favorite was the male that I raised that I named Here's Your Sign
Mm-hmm.
because he was courting a female, and within about a 20-minute period, he broke off three different times, hitched to an airline when I still had an air stone. I'm going back many years ago. Inflated his pouch and floated to the top.
Right.
And I sat there watching it. That's why I named him Here's Your Sign. You know, Jeff Foxworthy, Here's Your Sign, stupid.
I get it. So wait, one more thing though. So again, I set out to prove that you could keep seahorses in a small tank without all the extra equipment. I'm coming to see that what we've said the whole time is correct, and you can't. But if someone wanted to and they were just determined to, they just didn't have the room for all the equipment, I'm gonna figure out how to like do raise skimmer or something and make sure that everything works out, or I'll move them to the big tank. So no
Or
seahorses
you
are
can
in
use
danger
carbon.
here. And I will try carbon too. But what I was gonna say is, for someone that just wanted to keep it small without the sump, without the equipment, could I, in this case, just add carbon and do more water changes? Doesn't that remove organics too?
That's
Yeah.
what I would look into.
Okay.
Activated carbon, do more water changes. Consider even adding something like Purigen to help remove some of the debris in the tank.
Okay.
And I mean, when I first started out, I wasn't even running skimmers in my tank. I mean, skimmers came along a couple of years later,
Right.
and I really didn't lose them. I did have them reproduce, and I was able to raise fry. However, the difference is now what I do now is my fry will double in size in the first 4 to 5 days after birth.
Right.
Uh, my mortality is typically less than 10% during the first week, and anything that makes it past a week, there's a real high probability they're going to survive and grow and get quite large. I just don't see the problems that I used to when I first started. So a lot of it has to do with husbandry. Keep the tank clean.
Yep.
Don't let food sit on the bottom. Do
Right.
frequent water changes, that kind of stuff.
And
Yes,
blow around anything that can trap the crap.
Trap the crap. I love it.
I mean,
But
when
and
I
I
started,
I do look back on those few days that I was feeding without rinsing the foods. That's another key point. So,
you're looking for a sieve, by the way. But
Didn't you have a
sieve,
net you could
yes.
have used?
What, Ray?
Didn't you have a net you could have used?
I didn't. Listen, I've gotten so in, I mean, I keep saying it and people are probably like, whatever, but I've had the same two huge tanks running for so many years and just combined everything into those two tanks that I haven't had to do much of anything. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't prepared is the bottom line. I admit it,
I
I
like a
wasn't
net all
prepared.
the time for rinsing mysis because I've got a lot of different nets that have various size mesh in them, and I like a fairly coarse one. And much of when you're rinsing the mysis, much of the small uh, particles rinse out
Mhm.
when I'm rinsing it, so that when I put it in the tank, I'm getting mostly full-size pieces now.
yeah,
Years ago, when I didn't do that, well, I used a net, but I never even thought of washing out some of the particulate matter ahead of time. And then I
Right.
would put the food in the tank, and then you'd see all these little part pieces of mysis that the seahorses, most seahorses aren't interested in.
yeah,
So it ends up in the tank, and it's just more work for you to clean it out, or more to get trapped in the filters and start decaying and causing the
Right.
called organics. So I like to wash out. I lose a few full pieces when I'm doing it because it might go
yeah.
say tail or head ways through a mesh, whereas most of it's getting the mysis are getting caught sideways. Um, but I think it's a small price to pay for getting rid
Right.
of as much as possible of that crap. You don't get it all out and you lose a few good ones, but overall, I end up with a cleaner mess going into my tank than what I used to have.
Oh, yeah.
Just a
Well, that,
personal.
that no, I agree, and that's why I'm admitting it and pointing it out, guys, is because you know the mistakes that I've made, I want to make sure nobody else makes them. And while we can't dial into exactly what happened to cause
Yeah,
the
there's a
seahorse
sieve.
to have trouble,
Hold that.
all
That's a
these
brine shrimp
suggestions are
sieve.
good.
Yeah,
What, Cheryl? Go ahead.
that's actually a brine shrimp sieve.
Yeah,
Oh,
Uh,
but
Holly's showing us.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
yeah,
not going to let
brine shrimp
those
direct,
particles of
and
mysis
there's
through.
a kit of them, and I just use like the coarsest one, so they're big holes in it, and that I put my frozen
Show it
mysis
again. Show it
there.
again. Yeah.
yeah. Brine shrimp direct sells those.
Yeah, so they come in a kit. There's a bunch of different sizes.
Yeah,
I use them to strain out copepods and baby brine shrimp, everything, because there's a kit of all the different micron sizes. And
and
so I use the big
yeah,
one to feed my adults. I put the frozen mysis in there and rinse it under the sink so it rinses out all the crap. And then I submerge it into a little Tupperware of salt water and use the turkey baster to suck them out of there. But that way I'm rinsing out most of the crap before I feed it to them.
yeah. I rinse all. I basically what I do is I thaw out a chunk of food because I buy the flat packs.
I do too.
Yeah, a chunk of food, thaw it out, then it gets rinsed and put and the water removed, and then I just feed it to them after that. And even when I'm doing brine shrimp, again, of course they get the H2O2 the hydrogen peroxide
Right.
treatment and the water treatment, etc. So yeah, cleaning up the food definitely makes a big difference in how much hygiene you have to do on the tank.
Well,
You'll
I
think
will.
I'm nuts, but I weigh out my food too.
That's probably a smart thing to do. I don't go that far, but I think it's a totally smart thing to do because especially like me using the flat packs, I can't measure. I have to eyeball it. I crack it with a hammer and take the pieces that I think are going to be about the right
Yeah,
size
but
for
you're
the
making more
meal.
part pieces when you do
And
that.
then I don't thaw it first. I thaw it right under the sink water. That's how I thaw it, so that I
Mm.
have the water beating down on it inside of that strainer. And then I feed it like immediately after that. I don't thaw it in the refrigerator or leave it out or anything.
I thought in, oh, what do you call them? The little loaf dishes, like a 4x8 or 4x9.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Do
kind of
banana
what
bread
I
or
use.
something like
I
that.
use it
I'll stick it in the sink and I'll stand the flat pack up on its edge,
like a
resting it against
Tupperware.
the sink, and I'll let it thaw out about an inch of it. Um, then I put the flat pack back in the freezer, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll pour
Maybe
um,
I
actually I
can't
don't
do
pour
it.
it through. I scoop up the mices out of this little loaf dish and
Mhm.
give it a rinsing well with the fresh water, and it's in this net that I'm talking about, letting the pieces go through. So it's really coarse.
Yeah. I
It's
rinse
Yeah,
mine. It goes under the
But
sink
then I
water,
sit there and I'll
toss
squeeze
it.
the moisture out of it, and I've got scales that measure in hundredths of a gram, and I measure out uh, for a pair of abs, I give them 1 gram of the food, and for instance, with the barbs, I would when I had those, 1.5 grams for 4 of them.
Mhm.
But
Right, but remember, guys, remember we're trying to show people that they can do this easily. I'm
Mine,
not.
I
I think Ray,
frozen.
you're a pro seahorse keeper, and you know all the right things, and I'm so glad that you share them. I'm definitely not telling you not to share them, but yeah, the whole point to the all-in-one was to make sure people didn't have to, that you could do this without all the crazy other stuff. So I'm gonna make this work long term. You watch. I'm gonna
well, a
take
lot
all
of
your
people use the cubes.
suggestions.
Do is I put
You
them
can
in
probably
here,
estimate how much
my
to go
frozen
by the
piece.
cubes.
Okay, wait, you guys are both talking. Ray first. Go ahead.
A lot of people use the cubes instead of the flat packs,
Right.
and so I forget how much is in it, but it's pretty standard how many grams there are in a cube, or how many parts of an ounce or something. I don't know. I've never bought them, so. But
But
if you, for instance, if you know that this cube's got 3 grams in it, uh, then give a third of it for feeding for a
right.
pair of abs, or
You could
uh,
figure it out.
half of,
Right.
half of the cube
the
for.
problem with the
Wait,
cubes,
wait, 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 wait. Ray, wait, Ray. So were you saying 1 ounce for 2 seahorses? Is that your
No,
recommendation?
no, a gram.
I'm sorry, 1 gram for 2 seahorses.
That's
Not an ounce. Woo.
and there's 28.4 grams in an ounce.
Okay, I just wanted
yeah,
to make sure I'll put that in the comments. Go ahead. Holly has been waiting forever. Go ahead,
Okay,
Holly.
so basically what I do is I put the chunk of the frozen mysis in here. I stick this under the faucet so it rinses them off until they're not frozen anymore. I plop this down into, this has got about this much fresh salt water in it. So this
Hmm.
is full of the shrimp sitting in here. And then I take my turkey baster and suck it out and feed them from there.
Hmm.
And I
Gotcha.
don't use the cubes because I have too many seahorses and variety of ages and things going.
Yeah.
It's more cost effective to buy the flat packs for me.
True.
or-
They last me longer. And generally, I'm pretty good at eyeballing it. I have other not other seahorses, other fish that eat that besides the seahorses. So I'm also feeding it to my goby because he swims up when I feed the seahorses. He's all, give me some too, mom. So
Right, right.
That looks yummy.
yeah.
Okay, Cheryl, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, one of the problems with the uh, the mice that comes in the little cubes, if you look at it, oftentimes there's a lot of small bits and pieces. Whereas when you look at a flat pack, you can clearly see when you buy it that they are large whole mice or shrimp. And that's one of the reasons I do not like the cubes is because there's a lot of extraneous minute pieces that are going to basically if they go in your water, you're going to create a problem for yourself over time.
Absolutely. That's when Ray was talking about losing a mysis or two. I'm like, I want to lose all those little pieces, that aren't full shrimp because the seahorses don't like them as much. They might eat them, but anyways, the whole point to bringing this
Yeah,
up
I mean,
is that
if you have fry, and they need the little pieces, it can come
right,
in
that's
handy.
different. That's different, right?
But
But I had one of the seahorse source sieves. Thank you for the word, also. And I broke it, so I need to get with Dan and get another sieve, or just get a coarse net. Because I had to go to the local store and get a net
Can you
just to
see
rinse
how
my
coarse
food.
that is?
Okay, hang on.
yeah,
Let me make you big. Keep showing it.
I have a bunch of those.
And what is that? Is that a net?
It's an ad.
It's a fish net,
Yeah,
Okay.
but
they're
it's
usually
it's coarse, and you can see right now it's still
yeah.
got pieces in there that stick into the mesh, and I can't clean it out completely. But
Yeah, it's what I call the green nets because they're much coarser than
yeah,
the other nets.
Right.
so if if I had one just a touch bigger than what this is, I would like that better. But I haven't been able to find one. The next coarsest mesh that I can find here is a bit too big, and so this is the one that I settled for. But uh, it lets a lot of the stuff through it, and it's a lot coarser than what a lot of people think you want to use for
Yep.
flushing mices. But
Yeah,
Sure.
drop that in some hydrogen peroxide. That'll clean that net right up.
yeah,
Right.
well, I do that about every third day.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was gonna say too, like what I had to do personally is go down to the PetSmart, only thing I got here, and get a brine. They're called brine shrimp nets, and they're literally very small holes and coarser. And so, I started, of course, rinsing the food. And the whole point to this conversation was to make sure that we cover the fact that it's really important. And I think that that added to the organics in the tank because when I was just thawing it and then feeding the seahorses, I would like try to do this little with cups, like try to get out all the crap. But man, when I put it in the tank, I'd squeeze with the baster, and you'd see a puff of crap, you know. And I wanted to say really quick before anybody else talks, Chimp, when you make your new reef tank called the Crap Trap, I want tagged. He's stealing your name, Ray. He's gonna
Yeah,
name it.
I saw that. Oh, while we're
I've
talking
been
about
laughing
what's
the whole
posted
time.
there,
Sorry.
I posted the
Sorry.
link to the skimmer, but
Okay.
every time I post a link, when the part that says Ragey on it, the damn thing comes up with a red box around it. How do I stop that from happening?
You mean on YouTube or where are you posting?
Yeah, on the YouTube.
It's probably a YouTube rule, honestly. That's my guess. So if you send it to me, I can put it in the description, so everyone will see it, even who's not in the chat. It'll literally be
Oh,
in the. Go ahead.
yeah, it's on, I posted the link there, but like, I don't know if you copy it to paste um, on, yeah, what do you call it?
On
If
YouTube.
you want to copy and paste, I don't know what will happen with that when you're copying that red box around there, because if it copies the red box, then it may not work.
Right, but if you send it to me personally, I can pull it up on and figure it out. Promise.
Oh,
I
okay.
will. I will. And Chimp says, Ray, you'll get full credit when he sets up the crab trap. I just can't quit. I can't quit laughing about it. And Dylan says he uses 2 plastic red party shot glasses. One I punch a hole in, and the other, and something in the other. Then I melt the cube and drain it through the holes. Then feed the fish using a baster. Um, right. Um, and that works, but I would sincerely say as we move along figuring this stuff out, as I figure things out and as you figure things out, us all in one folks, it's me and you, Dylan. I would just say what do you guys think? Because I'm thinking that would work, but you still got all the pieces, right? Or Dylan, does it end up removing the little pieces? And maybe you use the flat pack, because I can vouch for what they're saying about the cubed pieces. They have a bunch of pieces. Okay, that didn't make sense. But did that make sense when I was saying it, you guys? Like 2 shot glasses, one with a hole in it, and he strains it through a shot glass.
I think any kind of sieve is going to work. You know what? Your holes, yeah, big enough to get the small crap to rinse through them, but it doesn't matter what that container is.
Right.
Whether it's a salt shaker or,
Yeah.
anything that's like a sieve will work. Fish nets, yeah, any of those things.
Actually, I have a little small glass thingy. I put a small amount of water in there. I put the mysis in there. Once it's thawed, I just turn it and block it with my finger, get all the small stuff down in the sink, and all I've got is the larger mysis shrimp and thing. I mean, it's just me. I don't even
I
use
feel
the
like
sieve.
I have toothpick dispensers, Parmesan cheese dispensers, that have like bigger holes. You could use something like that.
Yeah,
See?
Yeah, I
That
think
kept,
anybody can use anything, and then just look after you do what you're doing to try and get rid of it. Look well at what happens when
like
you put it in the tank.
yeah,
And if you're
yeah,
seeing lots of little pieces still
Puffs.
there, then you're not doing it. Your method isn't working. If
Right.
yep,
you're not seeing little pieces, then you're fine. You don't have to do anything more.
yeah.
Yep.
So
And
there's a
And there's
variety of ways it can be done.
yeah, exactly.
hey, Ray, and you'll like this one. Chimp said, and I don't know, Chimp, do you currently have seahorses? I know you do fabulous reef tanks, and either way, the point is valid, and we thank you for coming constantly. We love you. But he
I
said,
disagree with Kemp's soaking in silicone.
oh, okay, tell us why. I thought you'd be happy.
No way. There's
The
no,
freeze dried?
yes.
I thought you loved freeze dried.
I, well, I like the freeze dried, but too many people don't know what they're doing and don't leave it to get soaked properly. Uh, so just to tell someone you're soaking it in silicone, you need to be explicit about how long it takes. Because for me, I found that at the very least, it had to be a good 10 or 12 hours. But
oh,
I
Wow.
usually left it for longer than that and let it sit in the fridge. Otherwise, too much of it just, and then before I put it in the tank, I give it a real quick rinse so that the very external part of it gets washed off, but not what actually soaks into the body of it. So just to say that you're using freeze dried mice to soak in silicone, uh, it's misleading. And if you tell people that, they're not going to think about
What?
uh,
Well, wait, wait,
the
wait,
things.
wait. I agree with you, and I see the point you're trying to make. But just for the record, he wasn't trying to tell anybody anything. He was just sharing what he was doing with me, with us.
Yeah.
And I get your point, Ray, that you want to make sure that it's more explicitly stated what that process is. Chimp, we need you to come on in on a Wine
I
Wednesday
learned the
someday and
hard way because
share how you're doing it. But go ahead, Ray.
I told a guy one time about doing that, and I didn't get explicit. And then
Okay.
he wondered why he had all this trouble in the tank afterwards. algae blooms and all sorts of stuff. And it was because I neglected to tell them how I did the full thing. I just plain told them to soak, well, it wasn't in Selcon at the time. He had some of the mix that I had with the Algamac in it.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, he ended up with problems just because I didn't
Tell them how.
fully explain.
Yeah. Well, the Silicon also has a very short shelf life,
Yeah, because it's
and
emulsion.
that can be a disaster in a tank if you're not paying attention.
Well, for the record, again, Chimp is he doesn't have seahorses. He has fish, other fish. They're all fish. But Chimp, I'd love for you to come
Oh, they're
in and
fish.
share how
No,
you're
there's
doing it.
no other fish other than seahorses.
No, right? Not to
Those
maybe
are
us,
the
but
only fish.
no, I'm just saying that you would have no idea this happens on Wine Wednesday. People have differences of opinion. We've actually completely changed tune about certain places, companies, products, everything. We're here to learn from each other, so everybody's point's valid. And Ray, what you're saying makes sense because I do that all the time too. Somebody will ask a question and it's like so easy to give a one-liner answer. Whereas if you don't really dive in and really explain what you're saying, yeah, it gets lost in the translation kind of thing. But
Well,
yeah,
it's
and he
like you
does not.
tell somebody to set up a quarantine tank and move the seahorse to a quarantine tank.
Right.
Well, if you don't elaborate, the next question is going to be, well, something to the effect of, I have a sponge filter. Will that work in there, or do I need to add another filter to the tank? And they're not realizing that the antibiotics are going to kill any bacteria.
Right.
So having any actual filtration in a quarantine doesn't work. But it's one of those things, we were all new once.
Right.
We've all made our mistakes.
And I'm being new again in a different kind of tank. So, and yeah, and speaking of sponge filter, Dylan, you make these awesome comments. I hope someday message me or something on the side because I'd love for you to jump in and show, how you made a sponge into a sponge filter and, talk about your cracked tank because you're awesome at coming back in the comments, but I'd love for you guys to ever jump in. Chimp, I want you to jump in and show us your freeze dry process, or at least talk about it, because I do see your comments and it's working for you. So I'd love to get everybody in here and share. Even if you're not currently doing seahorses, it's still the point that we're talking about. So. And I'm sorry, Dylan, if I didn't cover everything you wanted to. I want to know how your cyano's going. I hate that you had your freshwater tank cracked. That's crazy. And yeah, with Chimp, I'm interested in the freeze dry process anyways because I've never done it. I've never seen it. And Ray's talking about 12 hours, Chimp's talking about 9, and you're saying that's more cost effective, but are you considering the time that's gone into it? And I want to see the darn process. I'm sure there's YouTube videos, but Cheryl, Holly, have you ever used freeze dried and had to rehydrate
I
them?
have never used freeze dried.
Doesn't take long.
It doesn't take long?
No, it doesn't take long. Like as far as your time,
Okay.
it's because it's sitting in the fridge. All you need is room in the fridge to let it sit.
That's what Chimp said. He does it in the morning, and then it's good by night. But so
I would
what's
use it if I did it in the morning. I'd use it the next day.
but so
Yeah.
what is the thing? I mean, it's literally like vacuum packed. I'm thinking freeze dried. I've never seen this, guys. I mean it. So it's just, and then you use some sort of
Yeah, there's no
liquid to.
moisture in it. Uh, they're just very, very light. It's like the exoskeleton.
Okay.
Have you ever had exoskeletons from shrimp molts and that? They're just
Sure.
very light. There's no body to them. Well, when they take all the moisture out, there's not much left, but it still looks. It has the shrimp's shape and everything. It's
Does
just,
it have its nutrition?
yeah.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
Nutrition's in the meat,
Okay.
and the meat's there. Well, what you're doing is just rehydrating it.
Right.
but it takes a long time to hydrate, and especially if you're using something that you want to soak into it, it takes a lot longer. And it doesn't soak in as well as what some people think,
Hmm.
because any enrichment I have, as small as I can micronize it in the blender, it's still a lot of particles that are too big to actually soak in. And those particles will just coat it. That's why do a quick rinse, just to get the external stuff off so it's not going to follow the water.
Yeah.
But when you get some of the particles are very minute, and they will actually be absorbed with the moisture into the body of the shrimp.
Gotcha.
Now,
And,
if you don't micronize it, it's not going to work.
micronize. Here we go with the words, guys. No, but no, seriously, and I understand the different. I kind of seeing the difference of opinions here, and it's literally what we're talking about. My situation with already having a problem with the Seahorse in this new tank, and Cheryl pointed out it's a new tank, but I really think this does boil down to the skimmer efficiency and the straining the foods and the particles and the puffs of crap from the crap trap that's going into the tank when I don't strain the food, whereas Chimp is dealing with a reef that has coral that'll eat those little particles, and or if it's not coral, if it's just fish only, it's just a different situation.
Yeah.
They don't instantly have problems because of organics the way that seahorses do. Still, I think it's a fascinating conversation, and Dylan's asking, would seahorses eat the freeze dried? Apparently, Ray's saying yes. Do they look exactly like? Do they look more like a shrimp, or is it just like frozen food that's
They look
been thawed?
I think the coloration is a little bit darker on the freeze dried once they're thawed in that. But it's been a number of years since I've done that, so you can't hold me to that. But
Sure.
put it this way, I didn't have any trouble getting the seahorses to eat it.
Well, I think we need Chimp to jump in here on a week when
His
he's
seahorses
available.
were hungry.
Talk about it. Right. But no, I mean it's a cool idea if that worked out for you. But Ray, how would you ever end up feeding 3 times a day if you had to
4 times a day.
four? Excuse me, four. Sorry. How would you hydrate? Like, would you just do a big batch of it that you could feed at different times, or
I was doing enough for a whole day,
okay?
but I would have it done in advance, and then there would be another. While I'm taking off of that, I've got the next one going for the day after that. And I'll
Nice.
take out a portion of it and feed it. Then next feeding, take out a portion more and feed it. Sometimes I wasn't measuring back then. Sometimes the last feeding didn't have as much in it, but that was just the way things were.
Did you notice any difference in the seahorses, be it growth, be it activeness, when you were feeding freeze? None. Okay. Well,
But then
see,
again, for something like that, you have to have something to do a proper study. You have to have identical setups
right.
with very rigid programs, so you can try and determine that kind of thing, because there's so many variables in a tank. Just when it's on its own, you don't know. When you make one change, you don't know for sure that that change is actually what has uh, changed something that you see in the tank. Something else might happen at the same time,
Yeah.
and that happens a
Absolutely.
lot.
Absolutely. That's why I always say when I start my videos, I'm not an expert, y'all. I'm just telling you what I've seen, because even with me sharing this Pouch Emphysema thing, as I fix certain things, I'm not going to absolutely know what thing worked, but I can still say, at the end of the day, once I did this, this, and this, things were okay. Make sense?
Kelly, how many gallons is that tank without the filter portion?
Okay, I'll answer you, but Dylan, I wanted to say, please feel free to put a link to your channel in the comments. Please feel free, because I want to see all the stuff that you do. I'm subscribed, but feel free to post a link to your channel so we can see all the things you're doing. Chimp, you too, anybody. Okay, Cheryl, the question was how many gallons water volume?
Yeah, how, without the filtration section, how many gallons is in that tank that you
I
fill?
I honestly could not tell you because it's 40 gallons total. So that's what I'm saying. It's a very small. I would say 30. I'm guessing. No, maybe 35. There's probably 5 to 10 gallons in the filtration section. Each cube is at least 5 by 5. So I could get in there and measure it for you. I'll try by next week.
Yeah,
But
I was
Usually it
just,
says in the instructions or the manual that comes with it, it'll give you the actual volume of
yeah, it
tank
should.
itself.
well, the actual volume of the tank itself is 40 gallons.
No, but they'll give you
Break it
the,
down. Okay.
yeah, they'll break it down for you.
Well, I can go look for sure and let you know. What would that matter? I'm curious.
I'm just curious because how many seahorses do you have in this that system?
3. That's what I'm saying. It's
So,
not even that many. Go ahead.
so basically, you're running a little over a 30-gallon system
Right.
on roughly the equivalent of a 10-gallon sump
Right.
with 3 seahorses.
Right. And I knew it was a push to start with, but I personally have kept many more
Yeah,
seahorses in a smaller tank. My first tank was literally a 29 gallon, and I had 4 seahorses in there, and no
yeah,
sump, no nothing.
yeah.
But
I'm
I
just
it didn't. No, wait.
curious.
Let me finish. It didn't last long term. So this entire thing has been a test to see. Well, now that we have an all-in-one where you actually can add a skimmer, you can add a UV, you can add all these things,
Hmm.
could it work? So that's what I'm trying to do. And Dylan might show me up. But go ahead. Go ahead, Cheryl.
No, I was just curious because I've slowly over the years gone to bigger and bigger and bigger tanks,
Right, me
and
too.
all my 29-gallon tanks are now sump. I've turned them into sumps, and I'm thinking this is going back to how many can we keep in a tank and what kind of filtration do we need, which is exactly what you're working on. And I'm just my brain is going in circles right now, trying to figure out what can make that work without any of the problems that you're encountering.
Well, I think I would personally just say to start off that if I had managed to get the flow right to begin with, I probably would have had less problems. You guys helped me with that. And then I think you're acing it on the skimmer. And I think that the few days that I wasn't rinsing the food affected things. It's funny that that happened right before I had a problem. So I'm going to slowly try each thing. Like I'm going to try to add carbon. I'm going to see how, because there's no real problems. He had pouch emphysema. I removed the air and he's fine now. Ray has said I should have flushed. So if it happens again, I will flush. I'm going to add the carbon. I'm going to play with the skimmer, clean it, and make sure that it's working to its full potential. Guys, if you're on Instagram, make sure you help me if I ask you questions there. And then, I'll go from there. If that doesn't work and I continue to have problems, then I'll add Ray's skimmer. I'm going to try to do it one by one, but I mean, of course, as you said, I'm not a scientist. I can't pin it down, but I'm going to do my best. And we'll
Makes
figure
sense.
it out because I want people to be able to keep seahorses without a huge tank. You
Without
should be able
going,
to.
I mean, I kid about it. I can go and buy a used 50 or 60-gallon tank for $150.
Hmm.
Then when I turn around and start doing the plumbing on it with everything else I'm throwing in there, I've got $500 plus easy sitting in the sump.
And then you double that with a skimmer. Right, right. So I love it when we talk about how you can make a skimmer, a raised
Yeah,
skimmer, or your skimmer, Cheryl, that you showed us in the fry series. Um, and yeah, I mean,
But
if this, go ahead, Trey, go ahead.
I still, I'm not against a small tank though, and I'd be foolish to say so when I used to keep 8 barbs in a 40.
Right.
And the
So,
40 isn't actually 40 gallons. It's only about 37 or 38 gallons.
so I'm curious when you were doing that, Ray,
No skimmer either.
did you just do crazy water changes?
Yes,
How much and when? Because maybe I'm not doing enough.
90% every 10 days.
Okay, I'm not doing enough.
That water changes.
No, but the thing is, you have a small skimmer there that is doing a certain amount, and I'm not sure what anything else in your system is,
Right.
but it all depends uh, not just on the numbers of seahorses in there, it depends on their size. Like if I
Right.
had that many barbs in there, I'd have abdominalis, I'd have a hell of a time.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah. I mean, these
it also
seahorses, guys,
depends on your,
I'm not kidding you. These seahorses are the size of my head. They're big.
yeah.
The
But
girls know that.
it's also going to depend on your feeding program, how well you clean the tank. There's so many variables that come into things, and
How
I
the
hate
tank
it when
cleans
people
itself.
post that you should do everything on a X number of days and an X percentage of volume, because there isn't a norm. I
Right.
could back when I had 7 or 8 tanks set up, uh, I could treat them all basically the same, except that each one did have slight differences.
Yep.
Like one species was slightly different than the other, and I had to feed a little bit more, or maybe
Less.
the decor in one trapped more detritus than what the decor in another tank did. Um, so I couldn't do each tank exactly the same. There had to be some variation on it. And while some of them it did work out, I would do things the same. You couldn't say that for all of them. So for someone to post that you have
This
to
is
do
the way. Right. You
uh,
can't do that.
5% change every week or something, that may not be enough for most tanks.
Right. Well, the only other thing I wanted to say is, Dylan, I really do hope you come on someday or answer in the comments, whatever. But I'm curious how you do your water changes, because Dylan has been dealing with cyano for so long. Um, I'm wondering if this doesn't fit into the same problem. Like, which is, you can do seahorses in a smaller tank and an all-in-one. You can, but it just requires more work. And I'm not saying you're not doing enough work. I'm just curious, trying to help you and trying to help me at the same time, as we find our way through this. Because Ray's right, every tank's different. It just depends on everything. In fact, I was thinking about that the other day. I have the Innovative Marine UV that fits in the all-in-one, and when I had the bacteria problem, I was running it constantly. Maybe I need to stop running that, because if that's killing stuff and my
What
skimmer,
bacteria are you
wait,
trying to
hang on.
kill off?
Well, I'll tell you, but if that's killing stuff and the skimmer's not working well enough, it's just shooting bad crap trap back into the tank, right? And what was your question, Ray?
What kind of bacteria? What bacteria are you trying to kill with the UV?
Okay, so when I
The
first,
bacteria that affect seahorses are benthic, not pelagic.
right, okay, well, when I started the tank, I overdosed bacteria, and the tank was a cloud.
Oh, that bacteria.
Yeah,
Okay.
just bacteria I added. And I used Aquachar, and both of those things worked, but maybe I need to tone down the UV now, because if it's killing organics or killing whatever that goes through it, and then my skimmer's not working well enough, it's just shooting it back, killing stuff and recycling it in the tank, which wouldn't be good. So all these questions are, things we'll
I'll
work
just
on.
say I always had more labor with smaller tanks.
Right, for sure.
More stuff to do, more stuff to keep up on. It was always harder.
Yep.
And yeah, the hang on back stuff, the canister filters, all that, yeah, I've dealt with. I'm much happier with a big sump. And I think maybe even the small tank with a big sump
Right. Absolutely.
could be maybe an ideal thing, because you've got a lot more water volume to work with and run your skimmers and your biological media and what have you. It's going to be better for your water, but you'll still have the small display area.
Yeah. Well,
I
if
think her
nothing,
point
if
is I think she wants to show people that it can be done without all the extraneous equipment and sump and everything like that, so people can do it in an
Yeah.
area,
in an
maybe not a
apartment or
home where they
something,
can't
right?
set up something like all the
I'd
other
like
stuff.
to see that, but I'll tell you, I've tried and it didn't work for me.
Right. Well, that's, I mean, maybe what will come of this, to be completely honest, is that if you want to keep seahorses long term, you do need to, just go for it. Maybe it'll end up proving that seahorses should not be kept in some small tank. But Ray did it. I've done it before, so I'm just trying. It's just an experiment, guys. I'm just going to share what
And
I
I don't
find.
think it's
Yeah.
that you can't. I'm sure you
Right.
can. It's just what are you willing to do? What
Right.
kind of labor are
Right.
you willing to put in to make it work?
And let's
Because
see if Lazy Kelly can pull it off, because Dylan already is. But the other thing is, I'm talking long term. Anybody can keep
Yeah.
anything for 6 months or a year. I want to see if this tank can't last years. I'm gonna give it a thumbs down. But we're not there yet. I'm still gonna play with stuff. I didn't have charcoal or carbon in there, so we'll try what we talked about tonight and go from there. But I
well,
Yeah.
really,
it's like
I would.
when I was raising my juveniles before I had the big grow out tank, I had them in a 29-gallon with no sump. It had the built-in like filtration in the hood, which is
yep.
basically for fresh water. Yeah, there was nothing there, but it was all I had when they were growing up. And yeah, I made it work. I raised them, but I was doing insane water changes
Yep.
every day to every other day.
Right.
So yeah, could it be done? Yeah, it was done. I did it, but would I go back to that? Oh heck no.
Well, see, and I feel kind of silly myself because you're telling my story. I started off with a 29-gallon with 4 seahorses, and it was great for like 6 months, and then I ended up being like, oh my gosh, this literally, Dylan, I had cyano. Now that I think about it, it was all over. I couldn't get rid of it. It was terrible. And then that's when I had the sump with the scrubber, and then I'm setting it. So all I'm doing is trying to either prove it can be done long term or start bigger because it's not going to work. But we're not there yet. I'm going to keep trying for you guys. And if you, when you watch this, if you've had a different experience, I want to hear about it. Please message me, comment, let us know. Doesn't, every situation is different. But guys, I am going to have to call it for tonight. Was there anything, Holly or Ray, that you needed to talk about?
I'm just going to mention that in my
Okay.
opinion, you're
Okay.
going to find it easier to maintain the tank after it becomes mature. And I'm a believer that it's going to take a year to a year and a half to get to that point. And skimmers will work better as the tank ages, and a skimmer works better the longer it goes after the cleaning. When you first clean the skimmer, it's not going to work as well as it did when it was dirty.
Really?
And if it gets too dirty, it's going to lose its efficiency also.
So you got to find the balance.
So there's a point in between there where you have to work with.
Okay, and I don't disagree with you. I preach that too. I mean, not preach, but I agree with that completely. And the fact of the matter is, I chose for this all-in-one tank not to use sand. So the establishment of everything might take longer. I've got a poop ton. We got crap tank, crap trap, and poop ton now of K1. And then I've got the rock, but it might take a minute to be established, and I agree with you that matters for sure. So,
I
but
was
we'll
looking for a
keep
picture,
going. Okay,
but I can't find it right now. Of course, it's late.
bring it,
But
bring it next Wednesday, and we'll show it
well,
before we
what it
show Heather's
is
tank.
over 30 Hippocampus erectus
Mm.
in a 20-gallon nursery tub. All of them are over 3 inches long because I was
Holy
still
moly.
cycling my
Mm-mm.
grow out tank. Those were the ones I adopted. I didn't lose any of them, but what it was is it also had another 20-gallon tub plumbed into it at a 29-gallon sump. So I had close to 70 total gallons total water volume. And they did great until I was able to start moving them over into the grow out tank. But I was trying to pull up one of those pictures because I mean there's just a mass of them in this little 20-gallon tub. But they did great.
Right. It totally depends on the system and what you've got going on. And like I said, guys, I'm just experimenting, But if you're having good luck with a small tank, I want you to share it. I want you to show it. I want to see it. And help me for once. Hey.
Hey,
But
I'm not.
Holly, are you good? Or Cheryl, I just said I got to cut it off. It's
Oh,
been 2 hours.
yeah.
But Holly, we can talk for a second afterwards. Holly, anything else you needed to share?
No, I'm good. I just got a text message. The check for my big 401k rollover came through today, so I'm excited
Woohoo!
about that. I don't know who all knows, but I'm an insurance agent, so I do like financial stuff and things. So
Hey, didn't you get a rollover on one?
what's that?
You got a rollover?
Yeah, I got a rollover.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that, Holly. And you know, everyone who watches this knows we wish you well.
Now I
Chimp,
hard to feed the seahorses for a while longer.
there you go. Chimp, hey, yes, definitely, but we want you to come in and show your process. Nobody said you're wrong. That's why we come in here and talk about it, figure things out. So we'd love to have you sometime that you're available. And Dylan, yeah, we'll talk more next time. I'm gonna have to call it, guys. I love chatting with you guys, but it's been 2 hours. Mama gotta go deal with the girls. Anyways,
We got 1 minute to go.
okay, well, in that minute, I'm going to say Happy Wine Wednesday. We'll do updates on this stuff. Watch for the Women in Reefing video about Cali Coral Collector and watch for my video about dealing with a pouch evacuation. Look, the wine. Right, my glass is almost empty. Time to say cheers. You guys say bye.
Goodbye. Holly, I hope
Bye.
you still hear it coming from the same place next Wednesday.
What was it?
I'm hoping she's coming from the same place next Wednesday,
Right.
not an alternative site.
Right, Holly.
Yeah,
We're praying for you for
absolutely.
sure. And
Yeah.
and
On a
sure.
side note, real quick,
Yep.
I've been checking my phone, stuff going on. We had two more fires start here today,
Oh,
like
geez.
in my community. One was started, they think, by down power lines and was immediately put out by one of the aircraft flying over on the way to the other fire, saw it and
Nice.
on it and got it out. So
Awesome.
definitely got some good luck going on.
Yep, and I'll be praying, and anybody crossing fingers, definitely send good vibes to Holly so that she doesn't have to evacuate, or if she does, that she's safe and the seahorses are safe for
Holly,
sure.
a friend of mine who is an active duty firefighter right now, apparently someone called in, and maybe it was you that posted it. I'm not sure. And they
Uh-huh.
called because there was a fire, and they got a recording. We know there's a fire. We're already on the way.
Wow.
Yeah, I had posted that, yeah, because I was actually in the city. I was in town, and
That
there
was
was a
it.
small fire like next to the off ramp.
Jeez.
And
But
I'm like,
he got the biggest
didn't
kick
know
out of
about
that
it,
when
but just
I
in
posted.
case.
All right,
He,
so everybody, listen. I love you guys in the comments. You've said, okay, good night, see you next week, like 15 times. So I'm finally going to call it. We all pray for your safety, Holly, and the seahorse's safety.
yeah,
We'll talk next week more. Everybody say goodbye. I'm doing the cheers.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Cheers, everyone. Happy Wine Wednesday.